So I'm going to give a quick, since we're already running late, a quick intro to Ulan. Ulan and I met 3 years ago, I think.
2 years.
Two? At George Washington University. I had just left a post there as a visiting scholar at the Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies, and we attended a conference together on Central Asia. My name, by the way, is Paul Coyer. I'm a research professor here at IWP. For those of you that don't know IWP, it is a graduate school for foreign and national security policy. I'm assuming you're all here because you realize the importance of both Central Asia strategically and also the role of Islam in that vitally strategic region. There aren't very many people that are able to speak on that issue with a great amount of knowledge. There's a lot of heat and not a lot of light. I think Ulan would probably agree with me on that. Ulan is hopefully within a year, right, of getting done with a PhD from the University of Indiana in anthropology. So he'll bring an anthropologist on the ground viewpoint, and I think we will all very much enjoy what he has to say. So without further ado, Ulan, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy for invitation, and I would happy to present my topic. As Paul said, I'm a cultural anthropologist, and were a lot of questions which probably will be about geopolitics and some political issues, which as I'm not specialist in this area. So I would try to give you kind of ground level view, and just give also as native of Kazakhstan, I would share my own experience. So I have kind of like two identities, right? being anthropologist and being Kazakhstani. So today we'll talk about dynamics in Central Asia, Islam, Soviet heritage, and U.S. policy. Probably less about U.S. policy. I would just give some perspectives on what's going on in region. So here is a map of Central. So you here on the left you can see like a map of Central Asia, and here is a map of Kazakhstan. So you would see that this is like 5 post-Soviet, former Soviet Union countries which got independence like 25 years ago. In 1991 there was no actually war for freedom, etc. It was just collapse of Soviet Union, and in some sense these countries actually received independence. So it's quite important. And Kazakhstan is, if you can see just on the map, probably Kazakhstan is the largest in the term of territories country, and it's only 17,600,000 people are living there. I mean, such a huge territory, and kind of small amount of people. And it's interesting that despite such a huge size, at least half of population live in urban centers, which is many of the cities actually were built during the Soviet period as industrial cities built during Cold War. Some of them devastated, but some of them not. In 97, Kazakhstan changed its capital from Almaty on the south to Astana. So today Astana is the new capital of Kazakhstan. There's some different interests behind, from personal ambitions of President Nazarbayev, who is ruling in the country from 91. All the time he's winning elections. Don't ask me why. So there's some changes in constitution and etc. And as anthropologists who study anthropology of religion and Islam in Kazakhstan, I would like to the first point is there is according to official census there is 70% of Kazakhstani populations are Muslims, means Kazakhs and some small ethnic groups as Chechens and Azerbaijanis, but I would like to make a point, like there is a kind of for anthropologists interesting thing that many people kind of identify themselves as Muslims, because being Kazakh for many people, it actually means a Muslim, being a Muslim. So there is in Kazakhstan we have a Sunni form of Islam, where Hanafi school is dominating. There's also different schools there too, like Shafi and Maliki, but Hanafi school is a traditional school of Sunni Islam there, which goes back like up to 7-8 centuries. For 17 million, we have high amount of mosques, up to 2,300 mosques, and in comparison with 90s, where many mosques were built in kind of chaotic ways, without control and etc., without state control. Today, all mosques under control of Spiritual Association of Muslims of Kazakhstan, which called like in Kazakh Muftiyat, so I will use this Muftiyat. But Muftiyat officially is not a state organ. It's a public association. But I mean, definitely it's under state control. The head of Muftiyat, he could not be elected without state approval. And in 25 years, Kazakhstan had only 3 muftis. One of them, I think, current mufti was elected like 3 years ago. And so, as what kind of changes happened, I think, in last 25 years, probably not just in Kazakhstan, but across Central Asia. As I said, like before, I mean, before presentation, Turkmenistan is quite close for scholars area. It's hard to say what's going on, but in 4 countries, especially in Kazakhstan and in Kyrgyzstan, I would see like changes of relations between state and religion. I think from Soviet form of control and oppression, there is definitely kind of mutual cooperation between state and religion is going on the ground level. For example, if it's the beginning of independence, it was hard to find kind of mullahs and imams with classical education because of Soviet past, where majority of madrasas and mosques were shut down and clergy was shot and sent to camps, gulag camps. In 25 years, there is a new generation of religiously educated people, imams and mullahs. Many of them studied abroad in Egypt. Majority studied in Egypt or Turkey. But also a lot of imams actually graduated from local Kazakhstani madrasas. And it's quite easy to meet a mullah who can speak, for example, fluently Arabic and Kazakh and Russian. And even, for example, it was said like recent small incident in one of Atrau mosque, which is Western Kazakhstan, that during a Friday praying, community who was inside of mosques actually stopped Imam during his Quran recitation and told him that you're making a mistake. And there was enough educated people inside of mosque who actually proved that something wrong in your khutbah. So, and definitely Muftiyat wants to see kind of more trained and educated religious personnel, clergy now. As I said, there is majority of population in comparison with 90s, with post-Soviet, early post-Soviet period, demonstrate on everyday level familiarity with basics of Islamic education. So today you will see more people who are praying regularly, fasting. There is like even inside of mosques now you can meet a lot of police officers, state officials who like religious and fulfilling like Islamic duties. There is also appearance of independent Muslim preachers. I will talk about them a little bit later. But as I said, some of them following state designated how Islam should be, and some of them not. And there's growing number of Muslim mass media. There is like Kazakhstan has a TV state channel, Asılarna, so which on a daily basis teaching people like I don't know, Quran recitation, like Sharia and fiqh, and they have page. Asılarna has page on the Russian Facebook, like Vkontakte. There is some journals and other stuff is going on, and just as I said, in everyday life you can meet more people wearing hijab, people who wearing kind of Middle Eastern style clothes, I call it so, and there is halal restaurants, halal cafeterias. You can easily now find halal meat, which for example 20 years ago was hard to find. There's actually several dissertations, I think, where in Brown University was dissertation by Ayselkun Botoyeva, who wrote about halal food industry in Kazakhstan and in Kyrgyzstan. So there's a serious like people buying technology and trying to, very similar to the, I mean, I think it's probably Turkish or Middle Eastern halal technologies, like in all these meat factories. So, but reaction of the of societies are different too, especially for people who under influence of Russian and partially of Western media. All these bearded men and women in hijab, they make them scary because people become kind of, in 70 years of Soviet rule, the end of pre-Soviet experience, many of them become adapted to so-called local type of religiosity, and for them it's sometimes strange and hard, and they become quite suspicious when they saw like girls wearing hijab or etc. They Russian mass media kind of spread this animosity and all the stereotypes about terrorism and etc. and etc. Especially after like these two Chechen wars, you know. And so this is probably the symbol of state-run control of religion. This is a mosque called Sultan Hazret, which is built in the middle of Astana, in Astana's downtown, in the new capital of Kazakhstan. According to official sources from website of this of Muftiyat, up to 10,000 people can pray in this mosque during summer or daytime. It's highly equipped with air conditioning and even with TV screens for people who cannot see Imam on the back lines, and they have like it's open for everybody 24/7. It's a nice carpet. I was on the ceremony of opening this mosque, and actually. I mean, this mosque was built by Turkish company, but it doesn't mean it was like a Turkish project. This mosque is Kazakhstani project, just built but they just hired Turkish constructors, and it's direct involvement of state because nobody will give a land. It's the middle of the capital, you know, for free. As land costs crazy money. I mean, and just keeping this building. I mean, it's enough money too. I mean, there's definitely state involvement, and interesting, the name of the Sultan Hazret, it's actually the title of one of the probably biggest Central Asian Sufi, Ahmed Yasavi. So mosque named not after president but after Sufi. Here's the samples. There is a lot of independent religious preachers, and I'm giving samples of two people. For example, here you can see Sman of Abdul Ghaffar. I've met with him personally 5 years ago, and he's a Salafi-oriented preacher, but who supported like a state policy toward religion, according to his last YouTube video. And we have like a Darin Mubarak, for example, who is more independent, and I don't want to call him like a Salafi or Islamist, but he is under critiques of state-run spiritual association of Muftiyat. So this is samples of, but we have plenty of them in Kazakhstan, and many of them running on YouTube channels, Facebook pages, Russian Facebook Vkontakte, WhatsApp, I don't know, Viber. Yeah, there is a lot of big technological jump which in Central Asia now. You can see like there's a khutbah, for example, people using like WhatsApp to send the last khutbah or fatwa of Abdul Ghaffar, for example, like I have a question like such and such, how I should, for example, marry, and people like, oh, this is like the khutbah given by such and such authority. Okay, send me via email or via Skype or any other sources. So there's interesting things are going on, and opinion of these people like Mubarak or Abdul Ghaffar or other people is quite important for Muslim community, and state definitely wants to cooperate with them. And there was a recent attack in Western Kazakhstan when group of Islamists attacked police and military barracks, and couple of policemen were killed and couple of military personnel were killed too. And for example, Abdul Ghaffar Smanov, he made a short video when he told like Muslims must follow the state land, they must follow what Muftiat is telling you to do. So he designated his position. So we can see like this kind of stuff is going on the ground level too. I mean, along with this is actually photos from my field work in northern Kazakhstan. Along with this kind of urban type of religiosity, on the ground level we can see a lot of shrine veneration of saints and Sufis, which is quite widespread tradition. It was like centuries old tradition in Central Asia. Big ties with India, of Naqshbandi with India too. It was a stream of Sufis who were visiting Central Asia from India, and Central Asians who went to India too. And here is, for example, shrine where I spent a couple of years, like up to probably 8 months there every year. So there's a shrine of Akkol, which is northeastern Kazakhstan, not far from Russian border, like 200 kilometers from Russian border, Western Siberia, Irtysh River basin. And for example, on a local level, you can see like traditions which were not destroyed by Soviet modernity. You can see like there's still practicing forms of religiosity which probably, I don't know, like pre-Soviet origin. And yeah, there's different attitudes. For example, Salafi communities in Kazakhstan, they totally don't like this type of Islam. I mean, there is verbal, online, or attacks sometimes when people kind of with several attempts in Western Kazakhstan when unknown persons destroyed a couple of these shrines, but in general, like local communities definitely will protect it. Nobody can go just and tell this is wrong, and we use a hammer and destroy this. Nobody will permit it. Here is like saints, their ancestors are lying, and there's a cult of ancestors among Kazakhs, and so nobody can touch it. What is interesting is that Muftiat is also kind of a little bit suspicious and in semi-hidden forms kind of trying to tell people like, don't go to shrines, it's not purely 100% Sharia way of and etc. etc. But Muftiat is also following state line and state kind of taking neutral position in this. And here's interesting probably piece. For example, here it's hard to say, but it's written on Kazakhs. This is a house for pilgrims built near shrine where up to 60 pilgrims can sleep and have food. And here is a slogan from speech of Nazarbayev, of current president, where it's written like, religion is Islam, our book is Quran, our blood is Turkic. So follow the path of ancestors. And the shrine keeper puts this slogan kind of to make his shrine kind of legit in the eyes of officials and local officials, local state officials. Actually, here is a mosque, for example, near a shrine. Whole shrine complex was built via support of state organs, state. I mean, on the local level, we could see when the phenomena of religious nationalism, and Peter van der Weer's term, when pre-colonial cultural forms become used in nation building. So here you can see like how Sufi shrine, which originally goes back to 19th century, suddenly become of state, of state control project. And if you would have questions, I can give you. It's actually my topic of research. Yeah, and there's a big jubilee of this saint in 2011, and it was organized by state. Up to like 5,000 people came, and it was 100 like felt yurts put, and it was just like it was a big event. But of course, it was full of national colors, portraits of president, and official speeches. And head of this region was there. High officials from capital came. So on some level, I would say like state definitely more tolerant toward this kind of forms of religiosity than, for example, like sharp Salafi forms. There's some rituals which go near shrine. There is also, along with Salafi communities in Kazakhstan and with just post-Soviet Muslims many people who kind of not connected, and majority of them in Kazakhstan who are not connected with any kind of movement. There is also interesting process of Sufi revival which goes in Kazakhstan. Here is a picture which I made in southern Kazakhstan in summer 2014, where Kurban Ali, who claimed himself a kind of descendant of Naqshbandi sheikhs, he's taking a bayat, Sufi oath from his disciples. And up to 2,000 people came to this event to meet to have an appointment with their sheikh. People came from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and even I saw cars with Russian plates. And I talked with people. They told that cars from Bashkiria, from Bashkir Muslims came there too. It's like Middle Volga, so like Ural and Volga areas, this sheikh is quite modern. He has own channel on YouTube. Yeah. There's tons of videos where he's giving khutbahs and etc. And very charismatic person. And he was quite open. I took interview with him, and we're talking about Sufism. And interesting, like during an event, he put like a huge poster of president near his yurt, like to tell, like an official Muftiyat representative was there, and he's kind of underlined, oh guys, I'm pro-state, I'm kind of yeah. Oops, sorry. And we talked with Paul about it, like, so after this, like, is it possibility of, I don't know, I don't call like Erdogan scenario, right? like this Islamist scenario in Kazakhstan. Yeah, I want to say like state is the main actor in Kazakhstan, and state run by secular people definitely. I mean, and despite all these activities, all the Sufis, Salafis, and even Muftiyat, these piety movements and etc., state definitely controls situation in Kazakhstan. And if you compare Turkey and Kazakhstan, I mean, there is in 20th century, I mean, Bolsheviks' policy of destroying religion is not compatible with what Kemal Atatürk did, because what Kemal did with Islam in Turkey, I mean, Bolsheviks just definitely wiped out religion from. I mean, religion in Central Asia survived mostly in family circles. I mean, it's Bolshevik mass repressions, and how both Muslim and Christian clergy was just decimated and oppressed is not compatible with how Kemal Atatürk actually moved religion institutes on the backstages. During the Soviet period, definitely there huge, the large sense of secularity, even atheism in some sense was built among many Central Asians. I mean, it's still visible in the region. So we can see there is like huge Soviet heritage there. Also, because of Erdogan attacks on Gulen, like recent attacks on Gulen, there is a I don't call it large or small, but there's a certain presence of Gulen alumnus in almost in all Central Asian countries. Alumnus, graduates from Gulen school. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, alumni. Sorry. There is a huge presence of students who graduated from Gulen schools, and they definitely don't like Erdogan. I mean, they don't like Erdogan view of religion and state, and it was interesting to see like a reaction of these people on a Facebook during this military coup, in Turkey, and many of them actually supported coup. Like, it was hard to expect from some people. Like, there's a huge presence because of in the last 25 years, because of the collapse of like Cold War borders and etc., because of flow of money and business development and state efforts, there's a huge a lot of young and middle-aged people got opportunity to travel and study in America, in UK, in Western countries. In Kazakhstan, like I don't know, like Facebook, internet is under some level of control, but like people actually have a quite free access to many sources, so Western run sources, and there's like a BBC on Russia, in Russian language are working there. There's like this cable TVs with, so people have have access to non-Russian source of information. And as I said, there is in 25 years they formed pro-Western oriented classes of people. For example, in Kazakhstan, especially from 2004, states started to send like around 500 people roughly 500 people to study abroad. Some of them for long-term period, like PhDs, or some of them just spent like a couple of months. But there is definitely a class of people who graduated from universities. And now in Almaty or Astana, especially in I don't know, in Ministry of Education or in like big companies, you can meet people who they know West not from just pictures. They live there, they work there, even they traveled, and many of those people, like many of them, quite secular, and they would never accept I don't know what Erdogan is doing now. It probably will not work for them. But if you look to the foreign influence, there is definitely neither Russian or China interested to see any kind of Islamist form of statehood in Kazakhstan. I will talk about Russia later. But there are always right? I mean, how Central Asian societies will, especially Kazakhstan, how it will react on the oil crisis. I mean, like on the fall of oil prices. I mean, in last 2 years, Kazakhstani tenge devaluated 2 times toward dollar. Level of life, definitely, it's not improved. Definitely, there are high level of unemployment is going on, and how state will sustain this, how state will fulfill its own promises. In last 3 months, there were again huge attack on police in Western Kazakhstan, and it was last week. It was shooting in Almaty. Which state kind of wants to show it was just a criminal who wanted to take revenge from police, but there's some details showing that this guy was probably like a radical one. There is small amount. I mean, we talked about like a year ago in a conference that is some Central Asians now involved in ISIS, around maybe 100 and 150 Kazakhs now in ISIS, but there is a lot of I mean, a lot of Canadians in ISIS. It's hard to say. I don't want to spread this kind of stereotypes like there is like a Islamist guerrilla forces in Central Asia who will destroy state. No, the state is still a main actor, but how Central Asian state will react on this economical crisis? Would it lead to some radicalization? It's hard to say. And this spring it was interesting. It was a big land protest in Kazakhstan when people were against state laws of land rent. We talk about threat from China, and state wanted to approve laws which will permit foreign companies to have like long-term land rent in Kazakhstan, and majority of and many people reacted as like, oh, like it will be Chinese company that will come and rent land and like for 50 years, for 90 years, and it means that this lands will never be returned back, and people like were scared of air pollution and water pollution of this and etc. And without, probably for the first time in last decade, it was not state authorized land protest in four cities of like this. It started in western Kazakhstan and moved to the east. Suddenly several thousand people went to squares. It was non-violent protest, and definitely I got sense that state officials were not prepared. They couldn't expect that such amount of people without any without any leaders, almost actually just went to the squares and demanded like to stop any legislation of these laws. And actually Nazarbayev told like, we will postpone this approval, and this special land committee is still working now. It was created after this mass land protest. And back to this Russian influence, it's interesting like how this land protests were presented by Russian mass. In general, after Ukrainian events, and my impression that this still high level of domination of Russian mass media, not just like Russian like news from Russia or etc. There is a view of the West which Russian mass media portray in a kind of monstrous way. West is a kind of is the evil, which came to destroy us. We had such a wonderful past called Soviet Union. Yeah, we loved each other. It goes on all levels. There is even like a cartoons made for really there is songs, posters, like movies. And it's interesting how Putin's Russia especially apply to Putin's elite apply to World War II. This is actually only one symbolic capital which can kind of unite Central Asia and Russia. There's only one experience practically it's only one experience where like voluntarily like millions of Central Asian and Russians like fought on the battlefield together. And if you would look to the like when Putin came to power in 2000, early 2000s, there's suddenly Russian cinemas and TVs become full of these movies about World War II. And it's interesting to see how sometimes Russian mass media wants to use it kind of to build this apply to Central Asian auditorium and remind them about like their past about. And in the case of this land protest, I talk about Kazakhstani TV channel called like Eurasia First or First of Eurasia, and 20% of this company owned by Russian ORT, which is like state-run Russian biggest media in today. And during this land protest, Kazakhstani Eurasia channel made a video how some unknown people giving to unknown people like $150, and they were telling, look, this is like some foreign spies who is giving money to these people to participate in this anti-Western strike. This is how they created like Ukrainian Maidan. This is how all this like color revolution happened, because there was a foreign. I mean, they didn't blame US openly, but they talk about these foreign agents who operating and spreading money, and actually it made a lot of fun. It's like on if you look to social network, people like just joke like it's like some guy, even not showing even his face, he's just giving like $150 to another guy. I mean, it was visible that it's definitely like a Russian, or it was like a made by Russian consultants, or Kazakhstani channel just copied like how their Russian colleagues like work, because it was perfectly done with good camera. It's definitely fake. I mean, it's my impression, it was fake. And you could see that like this is how Russian media, Russian view of world process, Russian view of the West actually dominates. And I mean, as I said, there is a majority of people, for example, who don't trust state channels, don't trust Russian media, and try to apply to some different sources of information. But for example, when I've been in the field, there is in 2014, there is a villages where they have only 3 TV channels, and 2 of them are in Russian and owned by Russia. And in 2014, for example, during this conflict in Donbass, where like wars are going on and fight, and it was interesting to talk with some non-Russian speaking Kazakh who was supporting Russia. It was the middle of the steppe. So it's definitely result of pro-Russian media. But as I said, in 2014, Putin made this interesting speech on Seliger, where he mentions that Kazakhs never had a statehood, and he said like this was like Nazarbayev told me that Kazakhs never had a statehood. That was interesting. Like this just put in one phrase actually kind of turned many Kazakhs from Russian pro-sympathizers to like even pro-Ukrainian supporters. And Ukrainian conflict definitely kind of shaped Kazakh society. I mean, it was visible, and in everyday talks, in even this. So yeah, sorry for. I don't know if you have questions, please. Sorry for. I'm moving to Indiana this weekend, and this presentation was done. I was just in between boxing and and typing.
I didn't realize you were moving so soon, and I thought, holy wow. So I invited him and last minute and pulled something together. So it's my fault.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your attention. Please, if you have questions, yeah. Please.
I know in Latin America there are some regional organizations that are chaired by either Cuba or Venezuela or both co-chaired. And I know in Central Asia there's the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which I believe is co-chaired by Russia and China. And there are certain ways, which it seems to me, that Central Asian countries may have leverage over us. I know there's a northern network of supply route to Afghanistan. The roads seem to go through Uzbekistan. I think they would have leverage over us there. Of course, Russia has leverage by way of Kazakhstan in the sense that we launch all our astronauts into space from Kazakhstan as opposed to our own launch capabilities. Yeah. But can you tell me in a nutshell what you think the United States' great game would be in Asia, and what are some of the obstacles to it in Central Asia?
Okay, don't leave Central Asians, as I would say. I'm not doing political science, but as anthropologist and as a person who worked in the Kazakhstani system of education, I would say it will be great if it will be more educational funding would be given by United States to Central Asia. because in the period when oil is going down, probably Kazakhstan, there's definitely signs that, for example, Kazakhstan started to cut their programs of studying abroad programs. It means like, for example, 2 years ago, they cut like, they left only PhDs and master programs. Before that, there was hundreds of people who go and studied abroad. Now it will be much harder for people to get education in the West. So that's my suggestion, that if US and West will keep their educational programs, even increase them, because there's definitely the decrease of programs as Muskie, for example, Edmund Muskie programs and etc. They're quite competitive, and there is only several scholarships available for many Central Asians. From this point, I would say, like, yeah, it will be great if it will be kind of balance between like pro-Russian education and pro-Western. I mean, there's still many of Central Asians, because they don't have like enough skills of English. They prefer to go and study in Russian universities. I mean, that's a kind of a problem. For me, it's hard to say to talk about some geopolitical issues in this Shanghai Cooperation, and I mean, you probably need another speaker who's but as I said, it will be definitely Central Asian countries have quite limited experience of contacting with the West. Just in the last 25 years, borders become open, and there's not just on the side. Many people know what democracy is on a theory, but many people actually never lived in democratic states. They actually never experienced it, and in this harsh period when Russian elites wants to still control and look to Central Asia as own backyard, it will be hard it will be bad if the West will kind of leave Central Asia. I mean, there is enough resources in Central Asia in economical terms, but I believe that it should be more attention from. If you will look to this region as, oh, it's totally taken by Russia or it's totally taken by China, it's wrong. There's definitely should be some forms of cooperation and support and etc. Yeah, this yeah. Oh, please. Yeah.
Right. So my question is more about the migrant workers from Central Asia who work in Russia. So having spent some time in Russia last year in St. Petersburg, Moscow, I kind of saw there seems to be a lot of social stratification, and I've read articles about how so half of the economy of some of these Central Asian states like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan is generated from the money sent back for these migrant workers who are kind of in a separate caste of society. And I've read articles about that there's a fear of them kind of becoming more extremist given the kind of social pressures and tensions that exist where they are in Russia, given the racism. And I was wondering if you could talk about this at all.
Yes and no. There is interesting situation. Even still, I mean, if Russia is suffering economically, I mean, now under sanctions, but for Central Asian, even in they still making more money in Russia than they making at home. Even there is like a devaluation of local currencies, there is a devaluation of ruble, they're still making more money and they have more opportunities in Russia still. And there is, I've also read some statistics that the level of money deposits which were sent from Russia to Tajikistan definitely decreased. But for many Central Asians, especially for Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, Russia is the closest source of work and money. And they will keep going there, and they will work there definitely. Will be the extremists? I mean, there's a lot of, for example, Russian-born Chechens who is now in ISIS. I mean, and Uzbeks are probably, if you compare a number, I think like how many, like up to 500, 600 Uzbeks who is now in ISIS, and Probably there are more people from North Caucasus and from. I don't know, all this recent land protests in Kazakhstan. There was no traces of religious extremism. It was pure. They were pure nationalistic in their rhetorics. I haven't seen any. I just monitored news day and night. Talk with people on via social networks. I got sense there was no religious protest inside, and even like old nationalism, so become even stronger in this. So for me, it's hard to say. There's definitely there will be individuals who will join, who will be extremists, but if you look to the, as I said, number of Europeans and Americans who joined extremist groups and number of Central Asians, yeah, I still believe that there is Soviet built heritage of secularism, which and for majority of Central Asia, forms of like political forms which will be built on religion, on Islam, are not acceptable. I mean, Islam as a cultural form, as form of morality and piety and ethics, 100% okay, but many people will not accept. I mean, this form of state. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. As I said, I was just back from Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan a couple of months ago, and I'm still processing, as I said before, too. But I didn't see as much traditional Muslim garb as I thought I would see in Almaty. Now, I was very, centralized. I wasn't going into the countryside, so I was very surprised about that. But one thing about the people that really impressed me negatively, but they were very sad. There didn't seem to be. They didn't look you in the eye. If you crossed the borders, you were treated like very suspiciously rather than welcomingly, which I found a little off-putting. But can you just explain how the USSR kind of left these countries? I mean, did they wake up one day and all of a sudden Russia was just not there anymore in any meaningful way? I mean, how did that happen?
I was 11 years old when Soviet Union collapsed, and I remember it was funerals of my granddad. It happened at that time, and it was like up to 200 people were on this funeral, different my relatives, and it was I saw like a dual reaction. Some people were quite sad. They just become suddenly. They were born in Soviet Union. They lived in Soviet Union, and they believed that they will die in Soviet Union, and suddenly the whole world just collapsed for them. And some more in kind of nationalist Kazakhs, they were quite happy. They believe that it will be a bright future, so we'll have independence, and there was and. Some people still believe, and some people quite succeed in independent countries, in independent Central Asia. Some people were poor in Soviet Union and become even more poor now. And this great question about why people so sad, great question for anthropologists. Believe me, I have the same experience after US. When I'm returning back to Central Asia, it takes usually up to a couple of weeks for me to adapt and stop smiling to everybody in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan.
So you're saying I was right or wrong in my interpretation?
You were right. There is a mode of behaviors which look kind of strange for Westerners, but it was a great article, I think, I forgot the newspaper, as one guy gave a 10 things about Russia, like people look kind of sad or angry, but they're quite hospitable. Yeah. So this is a different little bit behavior stuff when I don't know, maybe because I don't want to call it like a gulag experience, but there is a lot of some modes of behavior which goes back to prison. And it was a kind of prison ideology that you don't trust anybody. And life in Central Asia is full of survival, and you can be cheated. By anybody. You can be stopped by police and bribed. You can be, corruption. You can be just robbed by, there's like something. You must be always ready. There is also a lot of masculinity too. So kind of the real man, he shouldn't be smiling, he should be tough, he should wrestle. Wrestling, yes. Yeah, even in America, I'm doing some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That's why you post all those pictures on Facebook.
Yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. This is kind of the sense of masculinity, is that, but it's life just tough. The average of salaries, it can vary, but it's around $150 to $200 per month. So prices are high too. So people kind of trying to save money, try to raise their kids, and etc. It's what also interesting is that many foreigners quite surprised, like despite low salaries, there is a lot of SUVs, expensive ones on the streets, people wearing kind of a lot of fashion and etc. And this is one of the custom and tradition of many Central Asians. They want to keep the face, like you even if you're not a prosperous, you try to look as prosperous person, even if you're not even if not tough, you pretend to be a tough, no smiling. But there's a lot of hospitality too. There's and for many Central Asians it's vice versa. For many Central Asians it's hard to sometimes to adapt in the US, like to smile all the time and etc. It's interesting cultural experience. One guy told me that he went to US Postal Service with this kind of post-Soviet face, and ladies just become kind of, what happened? What happens? It's not my normal, just I want to send a package, and why are you asking this? It's.
That reminds me, during the Cold War, I remember reading the stories when I was a kid at the end of the Cold War about how some KGB agents had their full vision of the Cold War and the morality of it and American society completely changed once they got here, and saw everybody walking down the street happy and smiling and saying hi to them. And it was so alien to what they were accustomed to in the Soviet Union. And it really threw them for a loop. Yes, exactly.
Years ago, my Russian friends invited me to go to a Russian food store in Chicago, and as soon as I walked in, my friend's like, "Stop smiling. You look like the village imbecile. Stop smiling."
It's interesting to see when you go to Central Asian malls, where like Apple stores in Central Asia. I don't know, but stores which sell like Apple, like all this stuff. You can see like some latest like European American fashion, all these gadgets, and you can see how personal is changing. There's a lot of smiling now because I think managers kind of reading like Dale Carnegie stuff, and they teaching their personal. You should smile and polite and etc. And sometimes it's interesting to see. You just inside of mall, like trying to build this kind of customer and the seller attitude. Outside is, but I know there's a lot of joy too. I don't want to draw pictures that everything is gray. There is a lot of fiesta going on everyday level. There is, please.
I think it's interesting that. Oh yes, I forgot. I think it's interesting that this came up because I was in Siberia about 5 years ago in Irkutsk, and I spoke with I was with evangelical missionaries there, and one of them, she was telling me a story about how right after the fall, she was in that region of Russia, which is not too far removed from Central Asia. Lots of Mongolians, lots of Kazakhs, in that area. And she was telling me about how she was walking with some of her friends in Irkutsk, and she was the only American. Everyone else was Russian. And she smiled to a very old babushka that was walking, and this woman started coming at her with her bag to beat her. And all of her Russian friends had to protect her and tell this lady, like, no, it's okay, it's fine. Like, she's really just being friendly. And so they had to explain to her that smiling to someone on the street in Soviet times meant you knew something about their family, about, their family was about to get sacked or kidnapped.
Or you're
something.
making like a fun of somebody.
Right,
else.
like
Yeah.
it's not, it's not friendly, it's like I know something you don't, I'm better than you, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So she said it was definitely something she had to get used to living there. But I mean, I noticed that when I was there as well. I mean, like, I had to stop smiling at people on the street, because no one looks back, and it was interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
You mentioned about the Soviet times, and different from how the end of Soviet Union. I don't call it a fall of Soviet Union. I call it end of the Soviet regime. Was the most peaceful revolution the world has ever seen. I mean, look at American Civil War. That was a bloody one, where just the South wanted to separate out. So here the Soviets say, okay, go. Whoever wants to get out, we don't want you. And so I guess there was nobody with a gun to blow someone else off and all that. So given that, do you think the Soviets, if they understood, if they were going to do it all over again after the Second World War, would they be allies of the religious groups? Because, I think in India, British never interfered with the religion because they knew that would be the last day they would do. If the religious groups turn on you, you're gone. Let's put it this way. So the religion can collect a lot of money, has a lot of loyalty, and therefore you should make them part of the government, And I don't know, with 70% Muslim, where do they find those? You said those who are non-religious, or what did you, secular?
Yes,
where do you
secular.
find? Because in India we cannot find.
There is, it's a good question. And if you look to the Soviet policy toward religion, it's actually was different, like almost every decade. For example, if you look to the early Bolsheviks like Lenin and Stalin, and even during it's definitely like a forms of repression. But for example, during World War II, I think in 1943 or 1942, because Soviet army was in such a desperate situation, Stalin actually permitted to open some mosques and churches, and even some. Recently, there was a book about like Soviet jihad. It was, and many mullahs and imams, they called like war against Nazi Germany as jihad, as defending of the motherland. So it was interesting, like when, and for some period, only some limited number of churches and mosques were open. Some of them become closed and etc. after war. If we look to the like Khrushchev period, for example, like 1950s, 1960s, there is, level of repressions against Muslim clergy is not compatible with Stalin's, what Stalin did actually. For example, I talk with, I gathered some, during my fieldwork, I've met with descendants of the saint who was a Soviet collective farm worker, but he was also a saint. And he told like it was annual check made by KGB, who were coming, checking like what kind of Islamic literature do you have, like do you have connections with, I don't know, with some Muslim countries and etc. But he was never detained. During like a Khrushchev and early Gorbachev time. But it was, of course, they celebrated some Muslim holidays. They tried to make in kind of hidden ways and etc. But religion survived on some family circles and on hidden or semi-hidden ways. As I said, like there is like how Soviet policy was different toward religion too. And in 1970s, Soviet state permitted to have a first like spiritual association of Muslims of Central Asia, and center was in Tashkent. And I think like were like 40 graduates from the school who were sent on different parts of Soviet Muslim countries. And the first post-Soviet elite in 90s were actually like 60, 70 years old people who studied in 1970s, and many of them preached during Soviet time. But of course, they were strict state control. So, I mean, if you would kind of picture that Soviet Union totally oppressed religion, but another scenario would Soviet Union survive more if there was some, but I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, there is a probable, but this, and one of the what Soviet leaders also believe that Islam and other forms of religion will gradually disappear when communism will win. That's what's like scientific atheism. Scientific atheism was taught almost on all levels, from high school to the college level, and they really believe that the achievements made by Soviet Union and this communistic scientific atheism will step by step destroy sense of religiosity. And on some levels they were actually right. There was a great article written by Nazif Shahrani about Islam in Uzbekistan after 90s, and there you would there was an interesting moment when in 10,000 village of Uzbeks near Samarkand, I think, it was hard to find a person who would recite the Suratul Yasin, which is one of the basic like a Muslim Quranic surah. So so it was kind of, and definitely there was some Soviet propaganda got some results, but it did not violate religion totally. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You mentioned Gulen, and I was wondering if. Thank you. You mentioned Mr. Gulen, and I was wondering if you can speak to Mr. Nazarbayev's relationship with Gulen. Is it similar to Erdogan? And just to retract a little bit about the unfriendliness, I did have the opportunity to meet a clan of Soviets in a national park who were really celebrating, and after we all had a few vodkas, everybody was very friendly, and it was amazing. Total reversal. Yeah. But could you just speak a little bit about Gulen and Nazarbayev? Are they, I'm still processing all of this.
It's for me it's hard to say. I don't remember any personal meetings of Nazarbayev and Gulen, but last couple of days there is some news like that some Turkish officials, they're not demanding, but they kind of sending messages to Kyrgyzstan kind of to shut down their Gulen schools. Yeah, and in the case of Kazakhstan, as I briefly told at the beginning, that it will be hard to say that these schools are purely Turkish lyceums. There's definitely a lot of local staff is working there first. Second, there is some rumors in Astana that Nazarbayev's grandson was attending one of these elementary Kazakh Turkish lyceums elementary school. Will Kazakhstan go under Erdogan's pressure? I don't know, really. But there is many state officials, high-rank officials. They personally, via their family ties, they're involved with this Kazakh Turkish schools, and it will be not an easy project. And in Russia, I think they were close like long ago, like several years ago. In Kazakhstan, I believe it would not happen in the nearest future, but and Turkey is not such a strong player in this region, despite all this Turkey like pan-Turkic claims about mythical Central Asia where all Turks came from and etc. On the ground level, there's a bunch of groups of Kazakhs who feel themselves who are Kazakhs who migrated from Turkey in the 90s and or who returned back to their imagined motherland. There's some Kazakhs who making business with Turkish companies, etc. But to say that there is a huge political presence, I think Turkey is more important things to carry now, and then Central Asia. I mean, that was kind of, among some Central Asians, there is still kind of disappointment. They expected more from Turkey. Like especially in early 90s, because there was many people believed that Central Asia would be like a next Turkey. So after some economic reforms, it will be, but somehow, and there's kind of just geographically, Turkey is just like really is. I mean, there is no ways. I mean, and I don't think that the Kazakhstan elite will be easy. Will like accept like Erdogan's. I mean, and pressure. There's too much money involved. A lot of interest. So I don't think. And plus Gulen in Gulen, he's in United States now. He's it's not a problem for Kazakh elite now. Okay, thank you. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Indina. I'm originally from Kyrgyzstan.
Cool.
I'm now a correspondent with Voice of America here in DC. So my question is about ISIS, Islamic radicalization. In Kyrgyzstan last year, do you know CLOP? This is a youth media.
Yeah, CLOP, yeah.
They published a statement about Islamic camps recruiting young people in Kazakhstan that were actually based in Kazakhstan, and there was like a whole case how their website was blocked and there were kind of orders for that from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan too. So anyways, the question is, have you been following as an anthropologist any discourses in social media how youth perceives the threat of Islamic radicalization in Islam and ISIS in Kazakhstan? Are there a threat that like more young people could potentially get engaged in radicalist movements from such as ISIS? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. First, I've never heard about any Islamic radical camps in Kazakhstan. It's not. I don't know, it's quite, I even could not imagine that even in the middle of nowhere in the steppe you can, what's the point to have Islamic camp in the steppe? There is no communication, just like how you will, I mean, that's just as a person who lived in the steppe and who did the field work in the steppe, I would say any movement in the steppe, any activity will be traced by locals, and definitely by local police, and local police will send report to the Committee of National Security. And it's in the open range, it's just hard to have the Islamic camp. Second is about youth. As I told, Central Asians are minority in ISIS. There's like what 100 Kazakhs can do. I mean, what 400, 500 Uzbeks or 200? I just don't know. Nobody knows nobody knows the exact number of Central Asians there. There was one news that like around 100 Kazakhs with family left Kazakhstan and went to Syria and joined ISIS. But I mean, what's 100 Kazakhs for? If you look to their mosques, like for example, there's I showed a picture of Sultan Hazret Mosque. Every Friday it's full of people. And so what percentage of them actually went? I mean, and I don't know, my impression, in the nearest future, I don't feel that there is like high level of radicalism is going on. And actually, there is not just state efforts to decrease it. There is a lot of local independent preachers who's kind of telling like, please don't join, don't be radical because you will destroy your future of this country. Muftiat is not full of stupid people. There's enough smart imams and mullahs who are working on the ground level. During this land protest, first khutbahs which were made by mullahs, just be calm, work with government, talk with government. There is, if we imagine like these mullahs or imams, they just puppets in the hand of state. No, they have own auditorium. They enough educated. They can talk with people, and they're not like 100% loyal to the state. At the same time, they have own opinion. But majority of them, they definitely want to keep peace in the country.
I'm sorry. So I guess my question was, what is the young people's attitude towards Islamic kind of radical movements? Have you, based on your experience, do you see in Facebook in Kazakhstan, what are young, not just mullahs and other leaders, but what do young people themselves, do they understand this is a threat, or they become supportive of such kind of movements?
But young people is such a wide definition, really.
Kazakhstan or social media audience in general?
Definitely, radicals will, if they would support ISIS, they would not support it openly, especially via social media, because it's very easy to trace. I mean, by committee of the former KGB, current KNB, which easily can trace who made this post and etc. etc. My impression is that majority of people just don't support it at all, because popular mass media sources like news, all this news about atrocities made by ISIS, don't make people. I mean, people just getting scared. There is look just to the commentaries about some atrocities, like Kazakhstani, official, 10greennews.com for 10greennews.kz. Sometimes they put pictures of ISIS atrocities made, how they kill civilians, beheaded them and etc., decapitated females, etc. All this stuff is, and comments of the majority of people just we definitely don't want this. This is a horrible act. So, and I mean, every society would have radicals, even in Northern Europe. There's Scandinavians who joined us. These countries with the highest, one of the highest level of life. I mean, there will be always some radicals who will rise. I mean, it can happen it can happen anywhere. And what is kind of making scary, for example, in Kazakhstan particularly, in some sense, maybe last 5 years, in 2010 and this year, we had first military attacks, first kind of forms of shooting, direct involvement, direct fight between radicals. 2 times in 2010, I think, in October, and again in 2016 in October, again, Western Kazakhstan. There is a state oppressed and killed almost everybody, but there's quite kind of close to scenarios which go in Dagestan, for example, in Russia, where a group of extremists occupy a house and start shooting with police, and police usually storm and just wiped out. And the same happened in Kazakhstan several times. And a week ago there was a shooting in Almaty. But it's a problem also how media sources portray them, because it's under control of state. And for example, last shooting in Almaty, when unknown guy went to the police department, killed police guys, took machine gun, took a taxi, took a car, went to the downtown and killed another police officers. It was portrayed by state as just act of some criminal, act of some savage and etc. But as a lot of rumors just went via internet that it was kind of Islamic radical, and for many people there is a level of mistrust. They don't just trust many state-run mass media. They just, as I said, there is a lot of independent sources. But my impression is that I don't see about Kazakhstani youth, because there is hundreds of people who follow different types of religiosity. There's the Sufis and Salafis, and people who just learning basic things about religion, and people who don't care. But
how many statistics? Like in Kyrgyzstan, for example, in recent years, we have hundreds of mosques that have been built that were not there. And never though Kyrgyzstan has a very mild Islam, it is still an emerging issue. It's becoming more emerging. So, do you have any statistics on Islam in Kazakhstan?
There is officially 2,300 mosques, and officially they under control of Muftiyat. It's in Kazakhstan. It's hard to open a mosque without an appointed imam. It's quite actually it's quite impossible now to have a imam, official imam of the mosque without permission of muftiyat. So it's even some remote villages, for example, where conducted field work, imam was appointed. So imam was appointed by muftiyat representative, who was in the Pavlodar. It's like a regional center. So you must have certain level of education and you must be approved.
The point is because it is under control of government, it should be not like a smaller threat. For example, in Pakistan, probably government has less control.
It's hard to say, and as I said, how you can control today in the 21st century. This flow of information is just impossible in some sense.
You know, with all said and done, a good democracy should allow the people to choose sides.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, if somebody in the United States wants to join ISIS, I think the U.S. government should allow them. I mean, even though we are paranoid about ISIS, and I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Hindu, so I think if anybody in India wants to join, I would try to play with the government and put him behind bars. Why should we put?
And how to?
That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and for example, if you.
Citizen of this country.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and for example, in Kazakhstan, if you want to go and join ISIS, it's the easiest way. Just fly to Turkey. There is no visa. I think no visas for Kazakhstanis in Turkey, so you can just go as a tourist to Turkey and cross the border, and it's hard to trace. I mean, there's like, yeah. Please, sorry. Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. I just want to deflect the question away from ISIS. I have a question about, actually more of a pragmatic question. I've been interested and I've been trying to pursue Turkic studies on my own for a long time. Outside of Bloomington, I'm having an enormously difficult time trying to find classrooms or anything that's non-online based, especially for languages. I have some background in Uzbek and would like to, at some point, be proficient in kind of a pan-Turkic working vocabulary. But is there any way I can talk to you right after this session? I don't know if you have to run off or anything.
Yeah, please. Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
We just agreed with Paul to have a dinner. So
Okay.
He can stick around for a while. In fact,
Just very quick.
it's nearly 5:30, so why don't we wrap it up formally now? And then all of you that want to ask him questions, he'll be here for a while, and I can wait as long as he has time. So you guys can ask some questions one on one. So Ulan, thank you very much.
thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.